So today I just want to kind of go over some of my observations of the World Cup. It's been a while since I've done recordings, but I just wanted to kind of put my thoughts together on the World Cup so far. So today was the last game that was played was Jordan versus Algeria. Just kind of putting a timestamp on where we are. Overall, I think the first half of the World Cup has been very good. Well, the first group stages so far has all been good. A lot of good games. A lot of the smaller nations have come out and shown that they're willing to play. We've seen Cape Verde get a result, two good results. They've won against Spain and then a follow up against Uruguay. We've seen DR Congo get a result against Portugal. And overall, it's not been a case of teams just turning up and just parking the bus. We've seen a lot of teams trying to play actually good football. And even Jordan tonight against Algeria, they start off, they were obviously very limited. When you look at the squad, the team, you don't even know any of the players. It's not like Algeria where they had players like Riyad Mahrez and Ait Nouri who play in the Premier League, right? Jordan, I don't know where the players play, but the way that the team set up, the way that the team attacked was very good in terms of they played within the limitation. Now, what got them undone today was the same thing that got them undone against Austria was set pieces. Essentially two goals that they conceded were from corners, and the same thing in Austria. But overall, when I look at the quality of the teams that turn up, I've been very surprised. A lot of them are playing from the ball out of the back. There's not a tactic of just sitting back and just kicking it long and just trying to get a striker, get something in the air. Everybody's played a decent level of football. I mean, and especially the smaller nations. When we look at Scotland, Uzbekistan, Bosnia, DR Congo, Cape Verde, and that's why we've seen some teams get beat really badly. Is because they haven't turned up to just park the bus. They've tried to play some football, and and it shows the inexperience. At the same time, teams that are expected to have won, such as Portugal, such as Uruguay, haven't got results their way, and this is part of the benefit of the World Cup. And it really showcases that the expansion from going from 32 teams to 48 teams hasn't seen a dip in quality. Yes, there's some teams have lost heavily, but if we look at, for example, Argentina, they've got a lot of referee decisions go their way. Look at Germany, yes, going up against Curacao, they absolutely demolished them, but Curacao scored. Jordan scored. I think the only team that hasn't scored actually is Turkey, which was supposed to be a dark horse. Senegal was a big letdown today as well. I was expecting far more from them. So if you was to look at an overall, I'm not going to go into a scientific breakdown of this. It's just kind of a quick overview in terms of my views of the World Cup so far. Definitely looking forward to the rest of the games. Looking forward to see what other teams as it progresses. One thing is the first phase of games, teams are far more open and it was more of a festival experience. The second set of the games became a bit more difficult because now teams are kind of looking at staying in, so the pressure ramped up, and then the third group games is definitely going to be far more pressure because now it's kind of a make or break for many teams. So this is where you're going to start seeing teams, play a bit more riskier or edgier football, in order to try and score. And at the same time, some teams may be, parking the bus. We might start seeing that as they try to cling on to what they have and stay on for the rest of the games. What I did also want to kind of touch upon is that when I look at social media, there's a lot of posts about the stadiums in the US and, kind of a view of like, how a lot of people are impressed with the stadiums and, surprised to see these stadiums. Now, I'm not going to go too much about the stadiums in Mexico or Canada because I don't know much about them, but living in the US, kind of really want to showcase about, how the stadium setup are and what is the aspect of that. So, what I want to kind of touch upon here is that if we look at the stadiums in the US, right? Overall, we've we've seen a lot of fancy looking stadiums, big screens, and really kind of a cool display and a cool atmosphere. What I kind of do want to kind of highlight here is that when we look at these stadiums, is that they're huge, right? You look at New York MetLife Stadium where the World Cup final will be played is 82,500. The LA Stadium, SoFi Stadium, 70,000 seats. Dallas Stadium or AT&T Stadium's 92,000 seats. Now, I believe it can go up to 100,000, but that depends upon standing room and other caveats of the seating arrangements. But overall, you can see that these stadiums are massive. And for a lot of folks, they might be wondering, like, how come the stadium is so big? Especially when you look at different areas, they might be thinking, how does this equate? Now, one thing about in the US is that sports is a huge aspect here. In that you have obviously the NFL playing that day games, and all these stadiums that you're seeing on the screen here are all where these teams play NFL football games. But also, these stadiums are really kind of multifaceted in that they serve more than one purpose. They serve a purpose of not only being where NFL games play, but they also host concerts. They're also kind of like I would say, like the main venue for where big games and big events are kind of held. Like a lot of concerts and stuff are held at these venues and these facilities. So that's why when we come and look at these stadiums, it's by no surprise why we kind of see these huge venues and impressive venues. Now, another fact that I kind of really wanted to showcase here is that what's the size based upon metropolitan area? And the reason for that is for many folks, they may not be aware of the size of the US in terms of population. So when you look at New York, you're looking at a metropolitan area of about 20.1 million. That's absolutely massive. It's one of the biggest cities in the world. And you have LA following up that with 13.2 million, and Dallas Fort Worth area 8.1 million. When you look at the capacity of the stadiums and the percentage, you can see that the population that's served, the stadiums are really not that big in terms of population. Now, there also are some caveats, right? In the US, you have a lot of college teams, university teams, and they also have massive stadiums because the collegiate sport here is absolutely huge. It's not like anywhere else in the world. And one of the reasons for that is if you look at, for example, football in Europe, you would have all the clubs have a youth development team, youth development programs. So they will build their players up through the academy, and it's very common for players to be with the club from the age of like 7, 8, 9, 10, and they go through the club, through the youth ranks, through the academy, and get to the professional level. In the US, the sporting structure is very different. The sporting structure in the US is based upon colleges, universities have their own teams, and that's kind of the developmental. So that's why each university will have its own stadiums, and the sports are massive in itself because the collegiate is almost like a different league. So if you was to look at the NFL as a pro football league, the collegiate is like the amateur league. And that's kind of really it. You have like kind of that two-tier programs. You don't really have amateur or a lower leagues, as I say. You have either the pros or the amateurs. Now baseball is different. I'm not going to be sound like an expert on there, but baseball has the minor leagues. But overall, this is one of the factors why we have such impressive stadiums here in the US is because they're multifaceted stadiums. They serve primarily for American football, but they also serve concerts and other aspects. Another key caveat to mention here is that when we look at the population of uh, the US's population is around 341 million people, which is approximately the population size of UK, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. So when you look at the US as a country, it really is almost a continent, right? In terms of Europe. So again, this is why we have such large stadiums and such large impressive stadiums because the population that's being served is far larger. So when you put that into perspective and you also look at the best stadiums in Germany, the best stadiums in Spain, Portugal, the UK, then you can kind of see why we have such impressive stadiums over here that's serving right now for the World Cup. And that's kind of a quick wrap up here in terms of my quick World Cup analysis in terms of stadium sizes. Just want to kind of put some stuff out there to kind of explain, about my thoughts about the first few games of the World Cup, and also in terms of the size of the stadiums here. That's obviously very impressive, and that a lot of folks have really appreciate to kind of view those stadiums with those big screens where you never miss a moment. Thanks for joining and speak to you soon.